Gaza ceasefire crumbles as strikes kill 24. U.S. plan vote looms and Trump's Russia-friendly peace plan corners Zelenskyy at Geneva talks. Welcome to the Mirror TV. I am Mercy. Please subscribe, share, like, and comment to enable us to keep giving you top stories happening around the world. Trump's Russia-friendly peace plan corners Zelenskyy at Geneva talks. Tensions reached a boiling point in Geneva today as Ukrainian and European diplomats met to discuss a U.S.-drafted peace plan that has sparked alarm across Western capitals. The proposal, championed by President Donald Trump and presented by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, effectively paints Zelenskyy into a corner, forcing Kyiv to choose between territorial concessions or the total loss of American military support. Reports indicate the plan closely mirrors Moscow's demands, leading U.S. senators to describe it as Russia's wish list. While Vladimir Putin has signaled the plan could form the basis of a settlement, Ukrainian officials view it as a betrayal of the peace formula previously agreed upon by allies. President Zelenskyy now faces the impossible choice of losing dignity or risking the loss of a key partner. Simultaneously, domestic pressure in the U.S. is mounting as nearly 200,000 Ukrainians face potential deportation under new immigration crackdowns intended to leverage Kyiv's compliance. South Africa Snubs U.S. in G20 handover spat. The G20 summit in Johannesburg ended on a sour note today as the host nation, South Africa, refused to participate in the traditional handover ceremony with the United States. President Cyril Ramaphosa declined to pass the gavel to a junior embassy official sent by Washington, viewing the low-level representation as an insult. The Trump administration had largely boycotted the summit, citing grievances over South Africa's alleged racial discrimination against minority white Afrikaners and its neutral stance on Russia. However, the move appears to have backfired diplomatically. Now the U.S. is really being seen as the unreasonable one, noted analyst Marissa Lorenzo, as other global powers like China and India solidified ties with the African bloc. The summit concluded with a focus on inequality and shared goals, despite the glaring absence of high-level American leadership. Israel eliminates Hezbollah chief of staff in Beirut strike. In a major blow to the militant group Hezbollah, Israel announced today the death of Haytham Ali Tabatabai, the organization's chief of general staff. The strike, carried out in the heart of Beirut, is the first such attack on the Lebanese capital in months, shattering a fragile period of relative calm in the city. The Israeli military stated that Tabatabai was eliminated in a precise operation aimed at decapitating Hezbollah's military command. This escalation comes amidst heightened tensions on Israel's northern border and raises fears of a massive retaliation from the Iran-backed group. The strike demonstrates Israel's intelligence reach and its refusal to allow Hezbollah's leadership to operate with impunity, even within Beirut. Gaza ceasefire crumbles as strikes kill 24. U.S. plan vote looms. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza deepened today as Israeli airstrikes killed 24 people, effectively collapsing the latest U.S.-brokered ceasefire. Hospitals in the enclave reported receiving casualties throughout the day, despite the truce that was supposed to allow for aid distribution. Diplomatically, the UN Security Council adopted a U.S.-drafted resolution endorsing President Trump's Gaza peace plan, which includes an international stabilization force. However, critics, including incoming New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, have condemned the ongoing violence as genocide. The disconnect between diplomatic victories in New York and the carnage in Gaza highlights the immense challenge of implementing any peace deal while active combat operations continue. Mass displacement in Sudan. End the war, then restart factories. The seizure of El Fasher by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, has triggered a new humanitarian catastrophe in Sudan, with the UN reporting 36,000 people fleeing the city in just days. Survivors arriving in neighboring Tawila describe streets littered with corpses and a total collapse of order after 18 months of siege. Meanwhile, at the Least Developed Countries Conference in Riyadh, Sudan's trade advisor Bashir Abdullah issued a stark message to the world. First, we need to end the war. Then, we have to restart the factories. The conflict has devastated the nation's economy, leaving millions without livelihoods. The international community remains paralyzed, with aid agencies unable to access the worst-hit regions due to the intensity of the fighting. Nigeria in shock, 300 students kidnapped. Pope appeals for release. Nigeria is reeling from yet another mass abduction after gunmen stormed a Catholic school and seized 315 students. The attack, one of the largest in recent years, has drawn condemnation from world leaders. Pope Francis used his Sunday address to plead for the immediate and safe release of the children, calling the act vile. The kidnapping highlights the deteriorating security situation in Nigeria, where armed gangs, known locally as bandits, frequently target schools for ransom. The government is under immense pressure to act, but families fear a botched rescue operation could lead to casualties. Iran warns of plots to assassinate Supreme Leader Khamenei. Tehran is on high alert after Iranian officials claim to have uncovered attempts to target Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. While details remain scarce, the warning coincides with a sharp drop in the Iranian currency and renewed efforts by the U.S. to reimpose UN sanctions. The regime views these threats as part of a coordinated hybrid war by Israel and the West. However, internal dissent is also a factor, as economic hardship fuels public anger against the clerical establishment. Japan deploys missiles near Taiwan, angering China. Tensions in East Asia escalated today as Japan confirmed it is moving forward with deploying anti-ship and anti-aircraft missiles on islands close to Taiwan. The move is part of Tokyo's revised defense strategy to counter China's growing naval power. Beijing has condemned the deployment as provocative, warning that Japan is interfering in China's internal affairs regarding Taiwan. For Japan, however, the defense of Taiwan is increasingly linked to its own national security, prompting a departure from its strictly pacifist, post-war posture. Trump's immigration crackdown hits Somalis and Ukrainians. Fear is spreading through immigrant communities across the United States as President Trump moves to enact his strict immigration agenda. In Minnesota, the president announced plans to immediately revoke protections for Somali refugees, a move that legal experts warn could violate due process. Simultaneously, nearly 200,000 Ukrainians who fled the war are finding their legal status in jeopardy. The administration is using their uncertain status as leverage in negotiations with Kyiv, leaving families unsure if they will be deported back to a war zone. Civil rights organizations are preparing massive legal challenges to block the orders. Nobel laureates to G20. Wealth gap is a global emergency. As the G20 summit wrapped up in South Africa, a coalition of 500 of the world's leading minds, including Nobel laureates, issued a blistering critique of the global economy. Their open letter highlighted a staggering statistic. Since the turn of the millennium, the top 1% have captured 41% of all new wealth, while the bottom half of humanity shared just 1%. The group called for a global minimum tax on billionaires to fund development and climate action. The call to action comes as the super-rich, like steel tycoon Lakshmi Mittal, are reportedly moving assets to avoid looming tax hikes in nations like the UK, illustrating the difficulty of enforcing national tax laws in a globalized economy. That's all we have for you today.